So this morning, I have two guests. My first guest is Jennifer Norris, and just as a little bit of an introduction to Jennifer, it seems like everyone has thought about writing a book one day. We all have that book in the back of our head. That thought usually quietly disappears into the back of our mind after we start thinking about all the other obligations in our busy life. Most of us think, if I only had a couple of years off from work, then I could finally write my book. Dallas-based author Jennifer Norris shows us now how she managed to keep her day job, her friends, and her family happy and publish her first fiction novel, the Locust Trilogy, Unearthing. Jennifer, thank you so much for being with us.
Hi, Claire. How are you?
Oh my gosh, I am just fantabulous.
Me too. I'm very excited. Thank you for having me on your show.
Oh, it is our pleasure here at Biz Talk. We love speaking with individuals like yourself that are able to find a little bit extra time in their day to do a little bit more than the average bear. And that's really our target audience here on Biz Talk, is people that are very motivated to do more than just what is expected in their lives. And so tell us a little bit about you before we get into your book. What do you like to do? You're based here in Dallas. Do you have a family? Tell us a little bit about Jennifer.
I'm 32. I'm a single mom. I have a 14-year-old son who is my entire world, who is basically why I wrote the book.
Okay.
To show him that you really have to get out there and you really have to do what you have always dreamed to do. And I've dreamed of writing a book since I was little. So I really had to show him that if you have a dream, you really, really have to go after it.
And when you did publish your book and showed your son that it was actually in a book form, what was the emotion between the two of you?
His eyes kind of got bigger than my head. He was like, "Is that yours?" I was like, "Yeah, that's mine." He's like, "No, it's not." I said, "Yes, it is, Dylan, look." And I had actually dedicated it to him. And I think, he tries to play the tough guy because he was, I think, 11 or 12 at the time when I had actually published it. And he was kind of dumbfounded by that. He tried to play it tough, but I think he was heartwarmed by it. So
oh my gosh,
cool.
He was. He just had to be, tough 12-year-old boy outside, but inside he was melting.
Yeah, he's a mama's boy. He won't admit it, but he is.
Go Dylan, he sounds awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, so he was your inspiration for the book. Is he a part of the book? Or tell our listeners a little bit about what the book is about and just kind of walk us through, your idea behind the book.
Absolutely. It is called the Locust Trilogy, Unearthing, and I chose Unearthing for the title because it means the beginning. And it is the beginning for Cote James, the main character, because it is the beginning of an epic adventure for her. It is a path towards heartbreak and revelation, but also it's a road to understanding where she came from and who she is. She gets bit by a rattlesnake. It's a pretty vicious attack, and she wakes up out of a coma on the Native American reservation and realizes that her neighbor, this Native American man, Andy, was her guardian the whole time, and that she is this prophesized female spirit warrior that has to fight this war against the one they call the Locust. And there's never been a female spirit warrior, and it's set in modern times, so it's really cool. It's never been done before. There was The Last of the Mohicans and Dances with Wolves, and it's always taken back into ancient times, but I took it to a modernized level of what it would be like today. So it's an epic adventure. It's really awesome. If you like Hunger Games or Divergent, you're really, really going to like the Locust Trilogy.
I love the symbolism behind the title, and I think that anyone, no matter how old they are, can totally relate to a new beginning, an unearthing, as you say, to kind of discover who we really are meant to be.
Yes. And I think that sometimes kids don't understand why things happen, you know, maybe why parents, you know, weren't there for certain things, or why they got divorced or whatever. It's a coming of age tale, and, you know, her mother dies and she doesn't know where her father is, and all this comes to fruition throughout the book, and she has a better understanding in the end of why certain things happened. And sometimes we don't always understand why, but once we're enlightened on why, we have a better understanding of why our parents made choices that they did, and sometimes we don't realize that they were for the best, for
right.
better for
Yeah.
us. And it takes us growing up to understand that.
Exactly, and sometimes it takes a really long time to get to that point.
Very long time. Sometimes it takes you being a parent to realize why your parents made the decisions they made. Absolutely.
Yeah, we're talking decades of hang time.
Yes.
So, you know, part of what Cody is going through is, I mean, a lot of, I think, kids can draw a lot of parallels to it. Now, is kind of like the teenage years, is that kind of your target audience, or is it broad enough to where even like parents and their kids can enjoy this together?
Well, when I first wrote it, it was more intended towards young adults, but as I published it and people started reading it, I noticed that every age group liked it. I mean, my son loved it. My mother in her 50s, she loved it. I had some 70-year-olds tell me they loved it, they got into it, and I was very shocked at this, that every age group seemed to really embrace it. So that was very awesome. That really took me by surprise. I was like, well, this is great. So I have a whole huge audience that really seemed to embrace the book. So that was awesome.
Now, and is, when you say the Locust Trilogy, are there more coming?
There is. I am almost, if I could just sit down and finish the ending, which I'm almost there. The second one is titled The Raven Mocker. It's set to be released around December 4th, is the second installment of the Locust Trilogy. Should be out by December 4th.
Of this year?
Yes, by this year.
Awesome. All right,
I am working as hard as I possibly can. People are begging me for the second one, which is completely surreal. It's amazing to have people embrace your characters so much and love your story so much, and just can you just give me any clue as what's going to happen? I'm like, no, you just have to wait. That's such a cool feeling. So I'm trying to get it out as fast as I can. I promise everybody. Well,
I bet that there's a few Christmas gifts and holiday gifts that might include it's called the Raven Mocker.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. The Raven Mocker. So, so Jennifer, you know, the audience here at Biz Talk, we're all about business and understanding how business works. And so, for the folks that are thinking about writing a book, you went through the self-publishing track, right?
I did.
So tell our listeners a little bit about what that looked like, what the experience was. You know, I mean, and I'm sure that there was a couple of things that you learned along the way that might be helpful for someone starting out.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll be quite honest. It's brutal, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I spent 3 years going the traditional route of rejection after rejection. Publishers telling me that I wasn't mainstream, that I was a square peg, which in a sense as a writer can be a really great thing.
Absolutely.
Sometimes you don't always want to be mainstream, and it was rewrites and editing and more rejection, and it was a very emotional undertaking, and I just was tired of it, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to let who really matters speak, and that's the readers. That's who really matters, not the big publishers, not the agents. The readers are who really matters. So I just said, you know what, I'm just going to take control of my own destiny, and I'm going to do it myself. And sure enough, I did do it myself, and it is a very, very hard, long road. You are your own marketer, you're your own agent, you're your own publisher, and you have to work twice as hard. But like I said, you are at the helm, and you are no longer sitting around with knots in your stomach waiting for another letter of rejection. So you're selling books and you're putting yourself out there and you're doing book signings and you feel so much better about yourself. And you can still submit to publishers while you're doing it, but you're still a published author at the same time. So you don't have to sit there and deal with all that anymore. And it worked out great for me. So I would recommend it for someone who doesn't want to sit around and wait for all that mess. And you may be the lucky one that writes the perfect book the first time and gets published the first time. It's a 1 in a million shot. But
Sure.
with all the competition out there, I totally recommend self-publishing.
And it seems that there are a lot of different options out there from which to choose for the self-publishing. I did publish my book. I did a self-publishing thing as well, and I also found that it was a lot of fun actually for me, and at the same time it is very time consuming, so you have to be pretty focused. So
Yes.
So I guess a couple of questions have come up for my mind. Are there any specific places that you would recommend that our listeners start researching to find out the different options for self-publishing? And then the second question kind of that rolls up into that is what kind of goals should they be setting as they're kind of starting out on this new endeavor?
I would definitely recommend Amazon and CreateSpace. I found that to be so amazing and easy. It's basically they hold your hand through the whole process. And it's on-demand printing, so you don't have to spend a ton of money, buying books and having them just sit there while you try to sell them. So I would definitely recommend Amazon.com. And at the same time, always set realistic goals for yourself. Like you said in the beginning of, opening, that you can't say, I need to take a year off, and if I just finish this book, then I'm going to get it published, I'm going to have it made. That's just not how it works. And I originally thought that. I'm like, if I could just take a year off, I could publish this book, and everything's going to be great. You have to keep your day job. Because it can literally take years before you get published. Because, like I said earlier, there's so much competition out there. The publishing game has changed dramatically. Like, anybody can publish nowadays, and that's sad to say that publishers have to really, they're taking 3 or 4 months at a time to get back to you. So you could literally spend years before you even hear back from a publisher. So really set realistic goals, and don't let excuses get in your way. Like John Grisham said, a page a day is a book a year. So there's nothing stopping you from writing a page a day. It takes maybe 5 to 10 minutes to write a good page for your book. So there's really, really nothing stopping you from writing your book.
That's a great goal. One page a day is a book a year. I have not heard that before. Thank you for sharing that with us.
No problem.
So when you are organizing your thoughts, there's been so many different ways that I've heard about, how you can kind of put your book together. Sometimes people recommend that you start with a storyline and just kind of build in from there. Some people will say, oh, well, if it's an informational kind of a book, then start blogging and do 400 words a day on a blog and just use that as a compilation of all of your thoughts to put it together. What worked for you?
I do not have an analytical bone in my body. I literally just go with it. I start it and I just let it flow. I don't use an outline. I don't use anything at all. I just keep writing. And then I go back and fix it later. And so I think anything with fiction or fantasy, you really got to let your story flow. Just open the gates and let it out. And then go through and deal with all the grammar and punctuation and stuff later. That would be my best advice.
So it's like getting into the zone for an athlete. Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. And if you're building, when you write fantasy or fiction, you're creating your own world. It's your own characters, you can make up anything. So once the creative juices start flowing, you've got to just open the floodgate. So don't stop and try to dissect things and make sure everything's perfect. Just let it go. That would be my best advice.
Well, for those of you that just joined us, we are speaking with Jennifer Norris. She's the author of Locust Trilogy, and I'm just amazed at how much enthusiasm is coming through the phone in your work. So, I mean, I can tell that you truly are passionate about what you're doing and helping people know about your book and things like that. Going on that excitement, what would you say is the most exciting part about becoming an author?
Oh my gosh, everything. Everything. It is such a ride. The validation that comes from being a published author, if you sit down and write a book, you should be so proud of yourself. And I have to keep reminding myself, because I'm one of those people that is extremely hard on myself. If you get here, you've got to get back up here. If you get this far, you've got to take a step further. And I have to remind myself that very, very few percentage of the population actually sits down and writes a book. So if you are one of those people, you should give yourself a pat on the back, because it is such a tremendous endeavor, and it is so amazing once you get done. And I remember it was a Saturday night at 4 o'clock in the morning when I wrote my last word. And wow. I was just like, everybody was asleep, and I wanted to scream, and I was so excited, and I just put my hands up in there. I was like, I did it. Like, I actually did it. It didn't matter if I sold it or if I became rich or famous or whatever. I wrote a book. So if yes. you ever wrote a book, if you ever sit down and write a book, you should be so proud of yourself. It's amazing. It's an amazing experience. You created a whole world inside your own mind.
Right.
It's awesome.
And I love the fact that you were actually told that you were a square peg in a round hole, because those are the kinds of people that break through tradition and help others see the light, that it doesn't have to be like it always has been to be successful.
Exactly. Steve Jobs, brilliant Steve Jobs, once said that the only ones crazy enough to say they're going to change the world are normally the only ones who do. So if someone calls you crazy, go with it. It doesn't matter. Everybody thought I was crazy for wanting to write a book. I didn't care. And now I'm living it up. It's great.
Yeah.
Just do what you got to do.
And then when you, as far as the promotion and things go, you said that you were your own agent. So where did you start in organizing your book signings for those people that maybe have already kind of started on this path and are kind of looking for the trajectory for the next step?
I started with people that really support the local arts, like okay. Lucky Dog Books and the Metroplex. If you live in the Metroplex, they really embrace the local artists, and you really got to be willing to face rejection. You have to. You're going to get told no. I mean, I walked into Barnes and Noble, and they laughed at me. They're like, "Really, a self-published author?" I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "No." I'm like, "Okay."
You're lost.
I went to all the other bookstores, and it was funny. I looked on the internet, and all of a sudden, Barnes and Noble had me on their website.
What?
I was like, oh, well, that's funny. Yeah, they didn't want me in their bookstore, but I'm good enough for their website. So
isn't that
you just have to really get out there and hit everybody you possibly can, and if you get a no, then move on to the next one.
So when you say that you find people that support the local arts, is there like a place on the web that says, hey, these are a listing of all the things that support local arts, or do you just have to really dig?
You really have to dig. I looked for every possible bookstore that I could. I called anybody that would sell my book, any like local gift shops, anybody that would take me. You have to spend hours and hours in your car and on the phone. You just have to be willing to put in the work.
Okay.
And you will get validation. You will.
Wow. So
it's fun though. It's fun. Because you're out there, you're living your dream. And if you get a yes, it's the best feeling in the world, and you see your book on a bookshelf.
Yeah. I think it also feels kind of exciting. I don't know if you do any kind of speaking or talks around the message of your book or anything, but when I go out and do my speaking engagements and people want to take a piece of me home and buy my book in the back of the room, I feel like I'm going to cry. I'm just like, oh
Absolutely.
my God, really?
Absolutely.
Me?
Do you remember signing your first autograph? That had to be an amazing feeling. Yes. It's
Yes,
a great
I do.
feeling. Mm-hmm.
And my mom's an avid reader, so like you, it was really cool for me to have my mom have a book of mine. So it's just
Yes.
it's just one of those things, like you said, that not everybody gets to do, and actually everybody could do it if they chose. It's a choice. It's a choice
They
of
could.
how to use your
They
time.
could.
And it's
Absolutely.
it's not like we all just have a ranch that we can go and take a little sabbatical and just think about it. You just kind of got to do. So, what are some of the things that you learned during the process of becoming an author that you might want to share with somebody that's kind of starting this endeavor?
I think the biggest thing I learned is that you have got to hire an editor, no matter what.
Okay.
Your book is not good enough. I can promise you that. Coming out of the gate, you have got to hire an editor. You have got to dish out the money and hire a really good editor. It's without a doubt. That was my biggest problem. I came out of it and I was so excited, and I had my book cover, and I look back on my first copy and I have errors everywhere, and it's double space, and it's this huge brick of a book, and it's kind of embarrassing, to be honest, because I thought I was good enough where I didn't need an editor, and that was so far from the truth. So I would say, once you're done, put some money aside, and it does cost a couple $1,000s. It does. And for a really, really good one, it's about $5,000. But you can find people for about $1,000 to $2,000, and it will be so worth it, because then you have nothing to worry about. And it'll be polished enough for New York if you want to submit it, and you won't have people coming up to you saying, oh, I found this on this page and this on this page, like I had to go through. So I would definitely say make sure you hire an editor before you pass out a single book. Definitely.
Gotcha. Well, Jennifer, thank you so much. Again, folks, we're speaking with Jennifer Norris. She's the author of the Locust Trilogy, Unearthing, and she is almost done with her next book, The Raven Mocker, which is going to be out around December 4th. So, Jennifer, tell everybody how they can find you, how they can find your book, and how they can learn more about what you're doing.
Sure. You can go on the Locust Trilogy, thelocusttrilogy.com, which is my website, and that will tell you everywhere you can buy it, which is Amazon.com, Hastings.com, BarnesandNoble.com, or you can go to any Lucky Dog bookstore.
And then how will they find out when your new book is going to be out there for them to buy?
You can go on the locusttrilogy.com, and it will tell you all my speaking engagements, book signings, and when The Raven Mocker will be released.
Awesome. Well, Jennifer, it has been such a pleasure speaking with you this morning. I'm so excited about what you're doing, and we really appreciate you spending some time with us this morning.
Oh, thank you so much. It was so much fun.
You're welcome. Can't wait to read your next book.
I can't wait for you to read my next book.